for the warm welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you everyone for coming. Today's session, this worked out so perfectly. What we've been trying to do is make sure that we're able to talk to the regions and share where we are going with Davis Cup and get feedback. And Neil was so kind. There is an AGM that you're going to have before the August meeting. So this worked out perfectly. We're on our way to Bangkok for some meetings. So Neil, thank you very much. Again, Kelly for being here, and Javier from the Cosmos Group. So we'll go through a short presentation and then open it up for questions. If the questions are difficult, I'm going to ask Kelly or Javier to answer them. If they're easier questions, I may attempt to do that. But thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you for Davis Cup. The largest and most exciting changes in the competition's 118 years. Transformative change for the ITF, and just as importantly for our member nations. It's financial change, but just as importantly, change to our influence and our position in the game of tennis. Change that will see all the nations become not just the creator of world-class talent, but also the beneficiary. A major global tennis event to close our sports season in a spectacular fashion, a festival of tennis owned by the nations for the benefit of all the nations. The boldest changes to the sport in a generation thanks to a transformative and innovative partnership between the ITF and Cosmos. And Cosmos is a sport and innovative, but also true to following the values of Davis Cup. It's a nation's team event where no individual superstar can triumph alone. 26 nations gathering in one iconic venue in a format designed for the next generation of players and fans. It is an approach based on a new partnership between the ITF and the Cosmos Group. The Cosmos Group was founded by Barcelona Football Club and Spain international footballer Gerard Piqué as a sports marketing and investment company. Backed by a number of leading companies, including Rakuten, the Japanese e-commerce company. It is a group that shares our ambition for Davis Cup and most importantly is prepared to invest with us in that competition. Now, before I go into some of the details, I think it's crucial to look at the realities of where we are and why we believe change is needed. The Davis Cup story over the last 20 years has been exceptional on the court with highlights, but off the court, we've seen decline. Now the finals are intense and it's a unique brilliance, iconic venues and passionate, loud crowds. We know it's a global event that has become a regional one. And that decline in importance matters. A strong Davis Cup is essential for all of us. It creates new fans, it inspires young players, it produces revenue that you invest and we invest in the next generation of our sport for all levels of the game. And that's why it's so important that we have that influence. This proposal is as much about addressing our position within the tennis world as it has anything to do with financials. IPTL, Laver Cup, and now the ATP World Team Cup, all attempts to rival a team event with the latest, the World Team Cup, being a threat that must be addressed head on. That is what this proposal for the Davis Cup is about. It is bold, it's radical, and it's a challenge to the current order of influence in the professional game. 6 groups, 3 teams is the 18 teams. Now 16 direct entries and 2 wildcard nations will each play 2 round-robin matches to determine which of the 8 teams progress to the quarterfinals and beyond. Playing 2 singles and 1 doubles, the matches will be fan and player friendly. 2 teams will be relegated immediately, with the remaining 8 teams playing in a playoff match at the same event against 8 teams that are promoted from the zone competition. Not only will this mean that there are 26 teams featured during the week-long event, but the following year's lineup will be known a year in advance, because when we leave the event, we will know next year's 16 teams that have qualified. For the competition below World Group, the format will remain unchanged, with home and away over 2 weeks for Zone 1 and 2, to improve the hosting standards, and increased prize money for the nations in all zones, zones 1 through 4. The changes we propose are designed to benefit all nations, not just the World Group, not just the few, but all 210 member nations. The plans represent a considerable change to the season, with a major season-ending finale in week 47 and 2 weeks below World Group qualifying in weeks 5 and week 18. Not only does the change create a new major tennis event, it also provides opportunity in 3 weeks of the year to create new and innovative tennis properties owned by the ITF and dedicated to delivering our mission to grow the game. A new properties task force at the ITF, led by Anil Khanna and Renee Stambach, is already addressing these opportunities and how we can work to bring them and others. Most importantly, the opportunity to further extend our role and influence within the professional game is a critical component of these changes. Our focus in the immediate weeks leading to the AGM is to ensure that all of you have the information needed to make the final decision on this new proposal. As soon as we are able, we've shared information with all the nations and regions, and as always, we will communicate as quickly and as often and as widely as possible moving forward. You will understand that there remain areas to finalize, and a good example of this is venue. Already, there have been extensive interest shown in the concept and discussions with potential hosts in Asia, the United States, and Europe. All potential host cities that could claim the World Cup of tennis, not increase the levels of finances from Davis Cup to nations to a minimum of an additional $22 million a year. PILA for World Group will be increased immediately to $5 million, and on top of that, an additional $17 million a year from Davis Cup alone will be invested by the ITF that goes right back to the member nations. The existing $2.1 million in broadcast will remain for the World Group nations, and on top of that, $20 million of prize money will go to the players, securing top player participation and turning this event into a major season-ending finale. Now, we realize that there are many questions you will have. Most importantly, is the offer legitimate? What is the business plan? Well, the ITF last month, and a full due diligence approach is being completed at the present time. Deloitte's view for the board was clear. The Cosmos proposal offers immediate and significant increases in income compared to our current approach. Today's model is not working. We have declining sponsorship and broadcast situations, and our partners want change and the certainty that the top players are playing. There is a reason that the ATP have looked closely at this format under the guise of the World Team Cup. But the opportunity to act is ours, a proposal that has been assessed independently and is underwritten by multi-billion-dollar corporations such as Rakuten and others. We all have the comfort and the facts as we go to the AGM to vote in August. In order to achieve this change, we need your support. The next 118 days to Orlando are through a series of events and meetings about listening, communicating, and socializing this new proposal, understanding and answering your concerns, and ultimately will move forward if we do not. They continue to look at a week 1 team event in Australia beginning in 2020. Our current partners will continue to voice dissatisfaction at the current model and are likely not to renew in 2019 or 2021 when their contracts expire. Players will continue to skip ties or not play at all. This may be our last chance to act, to take control of our own destiny. Take this once-in-a-generation lifetime opportunity with our flagship competition to ensure the next 100 years of its existence, to see off rival concepts. The Fed Cup Committee, because we don't want to look at this just as Davis Cup alone, this is Davis Cup, but we do have significant plans for Fed Cup as well. And the Fed Cup Committee has met and is recommending to the Board of Directors that we expand the Fed Cup World Group from 8 teams to 16 teams for 2019. So the board is going to be discussing this at the meeting coming up in June. In order to do that, we would have a Final Four concept in one of the 4 nations that would be in the semifinals, so that a world group could become a true world group of 16 nations, and then we would be able to restructure below that the Group 1, Group 2, etc., similar to what we have in Fed Cup. We've also had very good conversations with the Cosmos Group about the same sort of concept for Fed Cup as early as 2020 or 2021. But we feel it's very important to focus on one at a time. So that's, but I don't want you to think that we are not looking at Fed Cup, because we think it has fantastic opportunities to grow as well. Yes, very fair question, good question, Suresh. And again, congratulations on your recent appointment as NOC president. You wear many hats, and we're happy to have you wearing tennis as an important one as well. Yes, the sponsors and broadcast partners that we have been saying since I have started in my position that they're not happy with the current status of Davis Cup. They believe they have overpaid for their sponsorship and are not getting the return because the top players are not consistently playing. The same thing from a broadcast perspective with our partner beIN Sports. So sponsorship is a key part of it, yes. Nation is very good, and there's some great examples of where it works so well, and India may just be one of those. But there are also examples of Davis Cup where it doesn't work. So we know that there were 4 quarterfinal ties last weekend. Spain in Valencia had a very, very good tie against Germany, and Italy and France in Genoa, where I was also a very good tie. But there were 2 other ties that weekend. And those other 2 ties did not have more than 2,000 spectators, and was not the kind of rivalry that you would expect to have. And I think that's one of the challenges, and why many of the nations have come to us asking for change, because it isn't the economic model that's working everywhere. And we know the importance of having something on your home soil, such as in Pakistan, where we've talked before, where we went through a period of 10 years or so where no home competition, and what that did to the development of the sport. This is trying to get the right balance, because the top players are not playing the way that we want them to and that they want to, because right now it requires not just the 4 weeks of the competition, but in many cases the week before or the week after. So some of the top players, the player council, are telling us Davis Cup today costs us 7 weeks of our time, not 4 weeks if we want to be committed.
I said to cricket now, I think sport has and will continue to change because we are going through a media revolution and consumer behaviours are changing every day, and they will continue to change mostly because of technology, and that has an impact on how broadcasters will see this and how sponsorship companies will see supporting it. But you mentioned cricket and the success that they're having. A lot of success that cricket is having is because they went through major change. The IPL reinvigorated the game completely. Today, Test cricket is really struggling, and I come from a background where I spent a lot of time working in Asia in my previous job, and we used to work with Star Sports, and I've had recent conversations with them, and they are also saying that it's absolutely necessary that we adapt and change. And the one thing that one of them said to me is that history and tradition doesn't guarantee the future, and that is so true. We need to be mindful of the traditions, but we have to make some bold steps to ensure that we continue to, as Dave says, attract the best players and attract the audiences, because if we don't attract the audiences, it's difficult for us to attract commercial partners. In fact, it's impossible. So change is always difficult, we understand that, but you've seen the success of that in this environment and how that can invigorate a game. And this is, the power of a World Cup is something